At 9 on a Tuesday morning, a man walks into the store you are about to buy, sets a cordless drill on the glass counter, and asks for $80. The plan you signed up for sounded like retail at its simplest: buy cheap from people in a hurry, polish it, sell it for double. And the pitch behind that plan is real. Television turned this trade into primetime entertainment, so the whole country already thinks it knows how the counter works. Bankers file the business under recession resistant because hard times send it more customers, not fewer. Gold has spent 2 years breaking records, which means the jewelry case in the corner has been quietly appreciating all by itself. And the industry's own association says roughly 85% of the loans written across these counters get repaid. So far, the pitch survives. It just cannot explain the man with the drill, because he is not here to sell anything. He wants his drill back in 30 days, and he is willing to pay for the privilege. How much? In Texas, the state's official rate chart allows this store to charge him 20% on a small loan for a single month. 20% per month. 3 prices get settled before this video ends. What this counter actually sells, because the merchandise is not it. What the owner of a store like this honestly keeps in a year. And what the front door lets in along with the customers, because everything on these shelves arrived from a stranger, and some of it arrives with a history. Main Street looks very different from behind the glass. Subscribe and see every business from the owner's side of the counter. So what does that seat cost? Guides for new pawnbrokers put the all-in start at $50,000 to $200,000, and the license is the cheap part. State pawnbroker permits run from roughly $500 to $2,500, with local paperwork stacked on top. The build-out is where the money starts behaving strangely. A Pay. Normal store spends its opening budget on stock. This one spends it on defense. The same guides price a serious security package. The cameras, the safes, the reinforced glass, at $5,000 to $15,000. And insurers want $5,000 to $10,000 a year to stand behind a room full of jewelry, electronics, and cash. But the biggest line in the budget never touches a shelf at all. To operate seriously, you are told to park $25,000 to $150,000 in the safe as loan capital, cash whose entire job is to walk out the door with strangers. Look at the shape of that budget, because it is the first confession. The shelves can open nearly empty, and plenty of shops do. What can never be empty is the safe. Your first inventory order is not merchandise. It is money, and the register out front has not rung once. Now the costs no startup guide leads with. The first is that every ticket you write is government paperwork. A pawn transaction records the customer's identification and the item's serial number. And in most cities, the day's tickets are uploaded to police databases, commonly through a national system called Leads Online, that law enforcement in more than 30 states searches. Some cities, Chicago among them, make the electronic upload mandatory. The second cost arrives from Washington. Take in more than $10,000 of cash from one customer, and federal law requires a report called a Form 8300, and splitting a big cash payment into smaller ones to dodge that report is a federal felony all by itself. Add check cashing or serious dealing in precious metals, and you graduate into a full anti-money laundering program, the kind with written policies and audits. The third cost hangs on the wall in many of these stores. A federal firearms license, because guns are a pawn counter staple, and that license brings ATF inspections and a bound logbook that has to balance to the last serial number. And the last cost is the one that can end the whole business, and it never bills you monthly. It comes through the front door, one customer at a time, and this story opens that door in a few minutes. Every ticket has 2 readers, the customer who signs it and the detective who might. So where is the money? Put the store aside and stand at a bus stop. A stranger asks to borrow $100, and the answer is obviously no. You do not know his name, his job, or whether you will ever see him again. Now he takes off his watch, a watch anyone could resell tomorrow for $400, and offers to leave it with you. Suddenly none of your questions matter. If he comes back with your 100 plus 20 for the trouble, you have earned $20 in a month. If he never comes back, you have bought a $400 watch for $100. Notice the step you skipped. You never checked his credit. The watch was his credit. That bus stop is the entire industry. Back at the counter, the drill from the top of this video resells secondhand for about $200, which is exactly why the offer was $80, because the association's own figures say these shops lend 25 to 60% of an item's resale value. Never more. Now run the man's month. In a 20% state he returns with $96, and roughly 85% of customers do come back. So the core product here was never a used drill. It is a $16 interest payment, collected across an entire neighborhood, every single month. And the other 15%? Their tickets expire, and their collateral takes the short walk from the storage room to the sales floor, priced near full resale against the fraction the shop lent on it. That is where the shelves come from. Nobody ordered that inventory. It defaulted its way onto the floor. So read the store again, from the owner's side of the glass. The loan desk is not a service tucked into the back of a shop. The shop is the tail end of a lending operation. You are not a retailer with a sideline in loans. You are a bank with a showroom, and the showroom is the collections department. The scale of the ticket is the final tell. The national average pawn loan is only around $150, and monthly rates across the states run from the low single digits to 25%. This is microbanking, done in volume, secured by drills and wedding rings. The shelves are where loans go when they die. Now the mechanism the professionals actually manage, because it is not the markup. Look at both sides of a single ticket. Lend $80 against $200 of resale, and the downside is owning merchandise at 60% off, while the upside is triple-digit annual interest. Priced correctly, one ticket cannot lose. What can lose is a whole book of them, slowly. Which is why the number a pawnbroker watches is not the day's sales, but the loan balance, the total cash out on the street, earning those monthly percentages. Grow the balance, keep the redemptions high, and the sales floor exists mainly to recycle the failures. The second half of the mechanism is the customer himself. A pawn loan has no recourse, walk away, and nobody calls. Nothing touches a credit file. The debt simply dies with the collateral. That makes this counter the one lender a stretched household can use without risking a spiral. And it is why the same faces come back with the same televisions and the same rings, again and again. Gold rose about 65% in 2025, its best year since 1979, and crossed $5,000 an ounce for the first time early in 2026. The wedding band that secured a small ticket 3 years ago now secures a much larger one. And the interest scales right along with it. Read the engine in one line. Cash on the street times the monthly rate, plus a shelf that pays you whenever the interest does not. Heads, you collect the interest. Tails, you keep the guitar. So why does anyone fail at a business that cannot lose on paper? Watch what drains the year. The first leak is the appraisal itself. Before lunch, one clerk might have to price a nail gun, a saxophone, a gaming console, and a diamond. And every optimistic guess is a loss locked in for months. Counterfeits sharpen the problem, because fake gold and replica watches exist precisely to visit stores like this one. The second leak is time. Electronics depreciate while they sit. The storage room fills with collateral that has to be tagged, tracked, and insured. And loan capital stuck in a slow book earns nothing extra for the wait. The third leak is the building itself, a target stocked with cash, jewelry, and firearms, where the security and insurance bills from the entry chapter never stop compounding. The gross margins are genuinely healthy. The industry's biggest chain reports retail margins in the low 40%, but gross is the top of the funnel, and every one of these leaks drips straight through it before anything reaches net. In this trade, generosity is a loss with better manners. About that front door. Everything in a pawn shop, every drill, ring, and amplifier, came through it from a stranger, and the law never forgets that. The industry's defenders point out, correctly, that less than 1% of pawned items turn out to be stolen. The problem is what happens when one does. The morning upload does its work. A serial number matches a burglary report, and an officer places a hold on the item. Your cash is already gone with whoever brought it in, while the item sits frozen as evidence, sometimes for months. And in many states, when it finally goes home to its rightful owner, nobody reimburses the shop. The loan is a loss. The merchandise is gone, and the paperwork was yours to file. That is the honest version. The tax an honest shop pays for its open door. The other version ends careers. Because if a pattern forms, a clerk who pays too little and asks even less, serial numbers ground off, the same seller every week with new tools and unopened boxes, the state stops treating the shop as a victim and starts treating it as the market that makes stealing pay. In Northwest Baltimore, a pawn shop owner named Noel Anschel spent more than 5 years paying shoplifters for stolen construction tools, appliances, and electronics, then reselling them online. When investigators finally searched the place, he admitted that 90% of what he bought was stolen and called it the cost of doing business. The scheme had brought in about $551,000. A federal judge answered with 46 months in prison, and the forfeiture reached from his bank accounts to 6 Baltimore properties bought with the proceeds. And even a spotless shop lives, one hearing away from zero, because a pawn license behaves like a liquor license. Suspended, it earns nothing, while the rent keeps arriving. Every state that lets this business charge 20% a month also reserves the right to decide, someday, that it no longer can. The same drill can be merchandise on Monday and evidence on Wednesday, and only one of them pays the rent. Leave the counter for a minute, because one question is still open. Who agrees to pay 20% a month? The federal government counts them. The FDIC's latest national survey found 5.6 million American households with no bank account at all, and another 19 million that have an account but still lean on lenders outside the banking system, which together is nearly 25 million households. For that customer, the alternative to this counter is not a cheap credit card. It is an overdraft, a payday loan running its own triple-digit arithmetic, or a flat no from a loan officer. The pawn counter says yes in 10 minutes, asks nothing about income, and cannot chase him, ruin his score, or garnish a paycheck if life goes wrong. He is not really buying money. He is renting the value of something he already owns, at a price posted on the wall. A bank lends against who you are. A pawn shop lends against what you carry. And in a fair share of American zip codes, the second question is the only one with a good answer. The annual reports say the quiet part in plain: accounting. FirstCash, the industry's giant, booked about $3.7 billion in revenue and $330 million in profit in its last reported year. And the big chain's filings run on the same two lines: the service charges on the loans and the sale of merchandise that is mostly collateral nobody came back for. Fewer than 8,000 storefronts, by the association's count, quietly write the small loans America's banks decided were not worth the trouble. America's smallest bank branch has bars on the windows and a neon sign that never says bank. So the question this video owes you: sit behind that counter for a year, and what do you actually keep? 3 shops, 3 answers. Shop 1 is the single counter store in a small market. The entry budget from earlier and a modest loan book. Trade benchmarks put a store like this at $50,000 to $80,000 a year in owner profit. And to be precise, that is net, after the clerk, the insurance, and the alarm contract, but it is also payment for your own 60-hour weeks behind the glass.
Shop 2 is the established store on a busy urban corner, with a deep loan book and a real jewelry and firearms trade.
The same benchmarks put strong single locations at $100,000 to $250,000 a year in net profit. And by then the book itself has become the asset, because a buyer pays for the loan balance and the regulars attached to it, not for the shelving.
Shop 3 belongs to
the operator who stops thinking in stores. The second and third counters reuse the first one's appraisers, compliance, and capital. And this is the version every large chain in the industry grew out of. One honest warning across all 3. A loan book takes years to season, because trust walks in one customer at a time. The take-home numbers above belong to mature stores, and year 1 mostly buys tuition. You are not paid for the shop, you are paid for the book. And who actually got rich at this counter? In 2016, 2 publicly traded pawn chains, FirstCash and Cash America, merged as equals in a deal valued at $2.4 billion, stitching together roughly 2,000 stores. The combined company, FirstCash, now operates more than 3,300 pawn stores across the United States, Latin America, and the United Kingdom. The playbook required no invention. Buy the corner shop, keep the counter, and often the pawnbroker behind it. Plug the loan, book into cheaper corporate capital, and repeat. Dozens of stores in a good year. Nobody assembled that fortune one $16 interest payment at a time. They assembled it one acquisition at a time. One counter is a living. 3,000 counters is a bank with a ticker symbol. So pull the gate down and total the day. The watch was always the credit check. The shelves were always the loans that died. And the front door was always both the supply chain and the biggest risk in the Furlisive building. 20% a month is what a yes costs in Texas, and a few blocks of every American town are priced accordingly. Some people look at this counter and see the last bank that still says yes, open on a Saturday, no questions, no spiral. Others see the most expensive money on the block, pointed at the people with the fewest ways around it. Both are looking at the same glass, and every item in a pawn shop gets an appraisal. But whether you could stand on the owner's side of it is the one appraisal nobody can do for you. Which business goes on the counter next? Leave its name in a comment and hit subscribe, and watch the back come off the next one.